what a tank looks like. It looks like a Sherman. We all know what a tank does. It does what a Sherman does. The number 10 greatest ever tank is the 33-ton fantasy tank that we recognize from newsreels, comic books, and Hollywood movies.
I would definitely be someone who'd say I think the Sherman tank is one of the greatest tanks ever made.
The M4 Sherman is the tank that won the Second World War for the Allies.
In total, nearly 50,000 Shermans were built, and the greatest ever reunited one of the survivors with 3 veterans for whom the Sherman became their wartime home. Because during the Allied campaign in Normandy, when these men were still teenagers, they trusted their lives to Sherman's state-of-the-art technology.
I haven't driven one of these for 60 years, but I'm willing to have a go. I'm Brian Carpenter. I was a driver on a Sherman tank. Are you all right up there, Nobby?
Yeah, I'm fine, Brian. How are you down there?
All right. I'm Nobby Clark, and I was a gunner.
My name is Ken Tout. I commanded one of these Sherman tanks.
Making its debut in the Western Desert Campaign, 1942, the American M4 Sherman soon became the ubiquitous Allied tank.
The Brits have them, the Canadians have them, the French have them, the Russians have them, the Chinese have them, and it manages to perform everywhere.
We were impressed by the size of it, by the efficiency of it. The guns operated beautifully.
Excellent, yeah. The gun in particular, 75mm.
Very much more accurate, and a larger shell, which meant that we could shoot at bigger animals.
Had to have a good gun, had to have good armor, but its main key was mobility. It had to be able to get fast into the enemy rear and exploit that breakthrough.
It was so fast and so easy to drive, and it's a lovely ride, almost as good as being in a modern motor car.
It's no surprise the Shermans drove like a car. They were built by the mighty US motor industry.
The Sherman tank design was driven from the beginning by its producibility. The Allies thought that we were going to have to outproduce the Axis, so they were built by places like Baldwin Locomotive Works, by General Motors, by Pacific Car and Foundry.
They were produced in vast quantities. For every sort of contemporary German tank, the Americans were delivering about 10 Shermans.
The Sherman design was really a universal tank that was intended to be used by a largely citizen army. It needed to be operated by somebody who knew how to run a farm tractor, by somebody who could drive a truck.
And you couldn't have got any greener than Brian Carpenter, a college student before he became a tank driver.
And I've got the 2 steering levers between my knees, and I've got a clutch pedal and an accelerator pedal, and of course the steering levers act as the brake.
Standardization is the key. It's only really in the engine that these tanks differ. This one, and others like it, had a 9-cylinder air-cooled radial, actually an aircraft engine.
I didn't think an aero-type engine was perhaps all that suitable for a slow-moving vehicle like a tank. But of course everything was low-geared, and at full revs in bottom gear, it would only do 2 miles an hour. And in top gear, 5th gear, it would do 22 miles an hour. But you needed to be on a nice, smooth, level road a bit downhill, otherwise it wouldn't take it.
The Sherman tank offered some unexpected domestic facilities when the lads were out and about.
We didn't have any laundry, so you had to wash your own clothes. And the only way you could dry your clothes was that you have an exhaust at the back, which you switch the engine on and you can dry your laundry very quickly.
And while you waited for your socks to dry, how about a cup of tea?
You could put a kettle on the top of the exhaust and boil the kettle.
But the Sherman was much more than an exercise in improvisation. Everything about the tank's design was carefully considered.
The American philosophy was to use the tank as an infantry attack weapon. So the armour is suitable for a vehicle which is highly mobile, has got to keep the enemy on the move, but isn't necessarily slogging it out with other tanks.
But tank-on-tank action was an operational fact of life. And by the time modestly armoured Sherman arrived in Europe in late '42, it found itself on the receiving end from a new generation of German tank killers. And German tank commanders soon got the measure of the Sherman.
I saw him first time when I came to the Western Front. There were no match for us. The very thin armor, easy to hit the armor, to penetrate the armor. This tank, 1,000 meters, the shot went straight through from both sides.
Bad news for Sherman, but that's only the half of it.
And of course, you had 140 gallons of petrol when the tanks were full. And of course, you were penetrated, the petrol went up. That's where they got their name from the Germans as Tommy cookers. Yeah. Because they brewed up so easily.
But despite all its flaws, in the end, it was the Sherman's original design considerations that proved decisive.
If we look at the Second World War with hindsight, it's quite obvious that the tank you can mass produce is going to win the war for whichever side.
When we encountered Germans, they didn't come alone. They come, many of them, and then we didn't have a chance.